Now we are pleased to present the Sitka Kaagwaantaan dance group. The Kaagwaantaan dancers' theme for 2002 celebration is to acknowledge our grandparents and the family that have danced in celebrations in the past and have gone on to the promised land. The Kaagwaantaans would like to thank very much and acknowledge the Eagle and Raven clans who are dancing with their group this year. Shungu Katie, Klukna Uddy, Deshitan, Doklawady, Dukdane Tan, Lenyadi, Yanyan Yedi, I'm sorry, Kiksuddy. By the way, hey, well, I gotta explain. My name's Dag Daw, and I'm Kiksuddy. Let's bring on the Sitka Kaagwaantaan dancers with a real big warm welcome.
Thank you. We're the Kaagwaantaan dancers. We're going to do some songs for you. We'll cut on our story, and we're just going to get on with our dance. And I'd like to thank Sealaska Heritage Foundation for once again inviting the Kaagwaantaan dancers. We have Tlukukadis Tiktaintaan. We've got Shangkukadis. We've got Guchit people. We've got some people from the box house.
Indians of southeastern Alaska, they have a highly developed sense of property ownership, and not only of land, but of names, songs, stories, and their crests, above all their crests. And it's probably only fitting that we start off this discussion on property law with the Kaagwaantaans, because the Kaagwaantaans have been aggressive in protecting their property rights. As I understand, in Sitka, at the Sitka Park, that no one is allowed to take any pictures without their permission. They actually have an agreement with the Sitka Park, and if there's any money to be made, 30% of the proceeds are supposed to go to the Kaagwaantaans. So they continue to protect those property rights.
And at the Sealaska Heritage Institute, we also protect those rights. Is that correct? We have a media policy and a photography policy in place.
Absolutely. Everything in all of the celebration events, we make it very clear. We have a policy that was adopted by the Board of Trustees. We have put that policy in our program guide. We also have a media form that people are supposed to fill out to say that they must recognize that these crests and stories are owned by the clan. They are not allowed to use it for any kind of commercial purpose.
And the backdrop to a celebration this year is the front of a longhouse, and that's traditionally how Tlingit clans lived, in large family groups in a longhouse. But that property law, you can see in the longhouse, would apply to the crest that's on the front of it, but there's lots of other ownership issues that belong to the clan, or a lot of items that belong to the clan. Can you take a look at the Kaagwaantaan up there and tell me what items would be, well, we'll wait until we hear the introduction of the next song, but after that, let us know what you see as communal property.
The song that we came in on is the Ducks Lady Kill a Whale. A song that we just got through with belongs to the Kaagwaantaan, the Jock Kudi Hit people. That's their spirit song.
Now, the Kaagwaantaan are dancing as a clan, and Dr. Whirl is going to kind of give us an idea of what we see up there would be owned communally by the clan, and how Tlingit property law would apply to that ownership.
Okay. The very first thing that you'll see up there is looking at their crest, and you will see many of them are wearing the wolf. And the wolf is, and we hate to use the word major crest, but it is a crest that identifies the Kaagwaantaan. Very often you will hear the Kaagwaantaans refer to themselves as the wolf, and that is their identifying crest, the wolf. So each and every one of them up there has that right to use the wolf crest. You see other kinds of crests up there, and it looks like I see a dog salmon. And even though they do not have the rights to wear the dog salmon, they may have a father who belongs to I think it's the dog salmon clan, and they're primarily from the Angoon area. We also have them in the interior. But they are allowed, and this is what makes Tlingit law so complex, is that you also have use rights, and those use rights are guarded very carefully. So a child has the right, the use right to use their father's clan, but it only extends to them. They cannot transmit that right to any other person.
And I notice you have at least one grandchild up there and a daughter-in-law part of there. Does any of the use rights extend to them from the Shankwedi?
Oh, absolutely. And I am a proud grandmother to have two grandchildren up there dancing, and they're dancing for their clan, and they have the right to wear the Thunderbird, but it is only a use right. They themselves cannot give that right on to their children. It's a use right, and it ends with them. The other crest I just might point out is the eagle. Even though the eagle represents what we call the moiety, the Tlingit people are divided into two main groups, eagles and ravens. So they have the right to wear the eagle crest as well.
And Rosita, some of the regalia that's out there has kind of transcended personal ownership and gone into clan ownership. When we get back, let's talk about the clan hat that's up there and some of the more prominent regalia.
The next song we're going to sing is Sheen Shiyi. We're going to give our group just a little bit of rest here. I have a cousin that's here amongst us. A few weeks ago, he had a very rough time. He is a Kaagwaantaan, and he is here tonight with us. I'd like to commemorate my good friend and cousin, George Obert. Raise your hand. Thank you, George. I believe it was the Marine Corps that pulled him through. Go!
Back with the Sitka Kaagwaantaan, and Rosita, just before we broke away, we were talking about when a piece of personal property transcends personal ownership and becomes clan property. And the most prominent piece out there, at least to my eye, is the clan hat that sits up there. Could you describe that process for us?
Right. Actually, first I have to say, we are very privileged that when any one of these groups bring out their clan hat, that is truly an honor for us to be able to see that. Because, and I hate to say above all, but clan hats are very important to the clans. And usually what you will see on those clan hats, again, are their identifying crests. And what happens when they are going to make a clan hat, they go through a long process. First of all, they are going to have to go to the opposite side. They are going to have to go to the ravens and ask the ravens to make that hat for them. And so they will actually have a ritual as they go out to gather the wood and prepare the wood. It's a very complex process. Just making the hat there is just at least 3 rituals involved in making that hat. Once that hat has been completed, it is then brought out at a party. And that clan will bring that hat out. And here we have the ritual presentation of a hat from the clan, but you also have the opposite clan that is there witnessing and verifying the ownership not only of the crest design, but of the hat itself. So you have 2 property elements just in that hat. You have the right to that crest, and you have the right to that object itself. Now, just a little bit about the spiritual and sacred aspect. The reason why I said it's very, very special to us is that these crests tie back to our ancestors. And for the Tlingit and Haida and Tsimshian people, when we talk about ancestors, we are not only talking about biological parents and grandparents, we are talking about relationships to the animals. And so here, the Kaagwaantaan have a very special relation, a spiritual relationship to the wolf, and also they use the killer whale. And so when you see that hat, you are seeing an object of art, but you are also seeing their crest, their spirit.
Men folks up. Men folks up. Hatan ayaka. Hatan ayaka. Go.
Okay, you just heard a wonderful explanation from Dr. Rosita Whirl on how property becomes clan property. Well, one thing, you described the process of how property becomes clan property. Can that property ever leave the clan?
Under Tlingit law, first of all, let me begin by saying that among the Tlingits, property is owned by the group. There are very few individual rights of ownership. And the other important element in Tlingit property law is that you acquire the right to use their clan crest, their clan property, because you are a member of that clan, not because you inherited it, not because someone bequeathed that right to you. You have that right. Every child up there has the right to that crest because they are a member of that clan. And thus, if let's say they wanted to alienate it in any way, and we have had very recent cases where maybe 1 or 2 or 10 people in a clan want to alienate clan property. They cannot alienate that clan property unless the entire clan gives its approval.
And you brought up a point that I think we need to make, and that is that Tlingit people are matrilineal. While we have our 2 moieties, the Eagles and the Ravens, you become a member of your mother's moiety, right?
Right, yes. And it's even a little bit more complex than that. We have the moiety system. We have the clan system. Ravens are divided into clans. Eagles are divided into clans. Then those clans are divided into house groups. And that's even a little bit more complex, and we'll talk some more about that. Thank you.
screen's ready to go.
Okay, we've been talking about clan ownership of property, and we know that it passes matrilineally, your membership in a clan derives through your mother. But as clan property, Rosita, someone has to have the responsibility or the obligation to ensure the safekeeping, the care and guarding and maintenance and upkeeping of the item. How does that work in Tlingit property law?
In Tlingit law, it is the clan leader and the house leader that serves as the trustee over clan property and house property. And there here we get into another complex issue, house property and clan property. Let me finish off on the trusteeship, and then let's talk about clan and house ownership. But among the Tlingit, the clan leader, house leader will act as the trustee. When that individual dies, the property will then pass, or the trusteeship will then pass on to the one succeeding him in the office. So the next clan leader who is validated at a party, and usually this happens a year after the clan leader's death, they will have another party, and that object will be brought out, all the clan property will be brought out, the new house leader will be named, and then that new house leader will then assume trusteeship over those objects. So this is how it goes from generation to generation. It follows the matrilineal line, and when new clan leaders are validated, what's happening again is also the validation of their ownership of their crests, songs, and stories as they are presented in the ceremony.
Very, very good explanation. Now, one thing that is a curiosity, when you rely on the opposite clan to put your items, to make your items for you, the other clan has quite a stake in what it does, what it prepares for you. Is that right? There's some prestige and some obligation that attends that?
Right. Here we go into another dimension of Tlingit culture. And you've hit on a very fundamental tenet of Tlingit social and ceremonial life. It is important for the Tlingits. We have this moiety system, and we have the absolute necessity to maintain balance in the culture and in the society. So when they
You
bring
may clap your hands with the
objects,
beat of the drum if you like.
their ownership rights are more or less validated. It's just like going to, if you were going to go and file a deed, and you were putting it in wherever they do it in the legal system, it's validated there, you record it. The opposite side is recording that title. So we have a reciprocal relationship between these two groups. They're separate, but then they are bound together by the laws and the need for the social and the spiritual reciprocity.
We're watching the Sitka Kaagwaantaan dancers do their exit right now. We've been talking with Dr. Whirl, president of the Sealaska Heritage Institute, about Tlingit property law, and she just explained to us how the different moieties, the eagles and ravens, need to be in balance. But that, I think, gives us an opportunity to talk about a new feature that the Heritage Institute introduced this celebration, and that's the juried art show. It's real important if we value our ha'atu to have good artists to be able to produce it. Is that right?
You're right. Some people will still, and we want to talk about some changes that's going on in our society. In the past, you absolutely went to the opposite side to have something made for you. But more often today, people are making their own regalia, not so much their ceremonial objects. They still tend to have that made by the opposite side. So many people are making their own regalia. But the other thing that's happened in our society is the development of art. Even though we don't like to say that we had the concept of art in our society, very definitely we had aesthetics. The Northwest Coast art is known throughout the world. Their art is prized everywhere. But we know for a fact that people are now selling their objects to outside of our own society because there's a market for it. People want to acquire Northwest Coast art. And there are historical reasons for it, and we could talk about, when our people were losing their abilities to maintain themselves through their own traditional livelihood, some of them were forced into art production, and it is an industry that grew. But the other element is the aesthetics of it. As I said, Northwest Coast art is admired around the country. And so the Sealaska Heritage Institute really wanted to show the world some of our finest art that we still continue to make. We also wanted to show the distinction between a'u and art. We make a distinction between our ceremonial objects that are owned by our clans and that have these spiritual dimensions.
Well, the Sitka Kaagwaantaan have almost exited the stage. Earlier today, when we were on broadcast, Rosita had said hello to our good friend from Bristol Bay, Trifon Anguson. At the time, Rosita was dressed quite well. Trifon, we want to say hi again and say that we got to be a lot more casual right now. This is a very, very enjoyable evening, sharing our culture with each other. The Kaagwaantaan clan has just shared with what looks to be a fairly sizable audience here right now. We're going to go ahead and turn it over to the stage moderator for a little bit. We'll be back the next hour. I certainly want to thank Dr. Rosita World. She danced with the Shukwakwedi and then listened here to the TV moderator stand and talk with us about cricket property law. Thank you, Rosita.
Thank you very much, Patrick.
Sitka Kaagwaantaan dancers! Woo!